So today we are going to learn about servlets. So I will introduce what are servlets and how to use them, and we will learn how a normal client server interaction works, like how, for example, I'm in my web browser now, how it interacts with the web server somewhere else, located somewhere else in the world, and then we will look at the inner workings of servlets, since it's important to understand how the interaction takes place between the servlet and client. And we'll create a simple web app. That web app is it's very simple. Like what it does is, 1 second, I'll show that. Yeah. So we'll build this web app using servlets. So what it does is it will just show today's date and time, and one quote of the day. So each time it will fetch dynamically a different quote. So each time we refresh, it will update the time and it will fetch a different quote of the day. So we will build that one, and then so we'll do all these things. So now coming here, now let's see what exactly is a servlet. So servlets are server-side managed Java objects used to create dynamic resources, and this dynamic resources is created whenever there is a request, whenever a request is executed. So this, whatever this servlet is, it's a part of the web app. So it's self-understandable. So server side is just a part of a web app. So as you can see, like, it is used to create dynamic resources, right? So for example, if you ask for a file, and that file has to be newly created, right? So that so the servlet will newly create that new file and then give it back to you. Or it can be anything, like fetch something from the DB, do some changes and give it back according to the inputs. It should do whatever changes, fetch something from the DB, do some changes to that data according to the inputs, and give back the new output. So whatever it is, it will give out the dynamic resource back to the user. And one more thing you must have noticed is this word called managed. So why this word called managed is added? Because till now we are the ones who used to create objects. We are the ones who used to call the methods for that object. We as users used to do all that object manipulation, data manipulation, everything, right? But now we don't do anything to the objects. Everything the the web server takes care of it. So we don't create object, we don't destroy object, we don't do any of the garbage collection. So everything is taken care by the server. So that's why it is managed on its own. So that's why it's a server-side managed Java object. So this is the definition of a servlet. So now we will look at how the server client interacts. So this is a bit important, irrespective if you are back end or front end. So this is how a web app will interact. A web browser, we as client will interact with the web server somewhere located somewhere else. So what happens here is, so first, this is our web browser. So we are the user. So we'll make a request. So once we make the request, it will be called as an HTTP request. So for example, this is the URI we are sending. So look at this URI. We are sending for something, right? #app/board. So it's the same thing over here. We are sending a URI to this app, requesting for a resource. So that's so after doing this, so we are sending this as a URI. So after doing this, after sending this request, so this is the first step. User performance an action. He sends a request, okay, and then this browser converts it to an HTTP request, and then the server side, it reads the request, okay. So it looks into this URI, and then the web server looks and then it checks whether this my app is deployed over here or not. If it is not deployed, it will just return 404, okay. and next it will test whether it is static or dynamic. So if it is dynamic, it needs to create create that new, it will execute that, it will create a new servlet object. Okay, if dynamic, it checks which servlet to execute. So okay, so first I'll tell this one. So if it is dynamic, it will just create the servlet object, and then it will whatever the resource, whatever the dynamic resource, it will do it will create or it will manipulate anything, and then it will return back to the HTTP response. It will convert that to a HTTP response and return it back to the client, and the web browser renders this one. So there are two things to notice here. So if whatever this one is a static resource, so for example it is just a HTML, or it is just a not HTML, it is like just one PNG, it is just a pic. So if it is just a pic, the web server will just first check if that pic is there or not, and it will just return it back to the client. So if this is for static resource, for example a pic is static, right, it doesn't change. So but when it is requested for a dynamic resource, so it checks which servlet to execute. Okay, so and then it creates an object of the servlet. Along with that, it creates the request response. So the service class is executed whenever we dynamically have to fetch the file or whatever. So it creates this request response, and then the service method is invoked. Okay, this method is invoked in a new thread of execution. So after this one, the control goes back to the web server. Okay, and then the response is then packaged into an HTTP response, and it renders it back to the user. So now if you must have noticed, I must have used several words over here. So see, so what if there are many servlets over here, right, in this web server. So just imagine there are many servlets over here. So this is servlet 1, this is servlet 2, this is servlet 3, this is servlet 4. So how will the HTTP request know which servlet to call? So that one is determined by the web.xml. Okay, so we need to do the configuration. So to this request, this servlet has to get executed. For this one more request, one more servlet has to be executed. So we need to connect this servlet to this request. So that is done by the configuration. We use that using web.xml. I'll fully explain how to do that one. Okay, so and one more thing I must have told is it creates a new thread of execution. So for example, each time this servlet, each time this request comes, okay, it will, for example, if 2-3 requests comes for the same servlet, right, it doesn't execute sequentially, so it will create separate threads of execution. Then those execution will it will create separate threads, and as soon as those threads finish, it will return back. Like it won't wait for each of the calls to complete, like it doesn't happen synchronously because of the threads. So that's what it happens in separate thread of execution. So one more thing you must have noticed is I have written this one as singleton. So if you want to know how singleton is a design pattern, if you want to know how it works, there is a video on that one, you can check it out. So singleton is a design pattern. So I'll tell you why the singleton is written. So in the very first time you make a request, okay, so this web server will check if it is there or not. If it is there, okay, if it is there, it will create one servlet object. Okay, so the first time it will create a servlet object, and then it will do whatever this response, whatever this the dynamic thing, whatever operation it has to do, it will do, and then it will return. Now the second time you call the same request but with different inputs. Okay, so it won't create a new object class again. It won't create one more servlet object and do the operations on that time. It will make use of the same servlet, object, and whatever this request will be different, right? So only this part will change, only this part, request and response will change. Okay, so once this request response will change, it won't create a new object, so it will use the same singleton, it will use the same old object itself. So that's why it is called singleton. It's like singleton, so it will call the same method of the same object and it will return it back. So that's why it is singleton. So only during the first call an object is created, and after that one the same object is used. So what we can do is to come up with an analogy. We can think of the web, in the web server there can be many apps, and inside that many apps there can be many servlets. So everything is managed by the web server. So when these servlet objects get destroyed is when the web server shuts down. So as soon as the web server shuts down, like, they need to get destroyed. So that also we don't need to care, all that is taken care by the web server. So an analogy for that is a food court, right? So inside one food court is like one web server. Inside that food court there might be many stalls. So that is like many stalls are like many apps, or many web apps are deployed on that web server. So inside that apps there can be many cooks, right? Inside that those stalls, food stalls, there can be many cooks. So those cooks are called the servlet objects. Those cooks can be taken as these servlet objects. So as soon as the user gives a request, the servlet which is the cook, they will cook out the dish and they will give it back to the user, and it will be sent back as an HTTP response. So this food court, food stall, and the cook can be regarded as web server, web app, and inside that web app the servlet object. So this is that analogy if you want to remember. So typically speaking, everything is managed by the server, as it is servlets are server managed. So the only thing we need to do is write this service method. Okay, write this service method and then configure that, okay, for this request hit this servlet object. So these are the only things we have to do. So let's do that one. So let's build this app, okay, this simple app. So each time it should show different day, each time it should show that current date and time, and each time it should show different quote of the day. Okay, so let's build this app. So the first step what we have to do in building this app is we need to have the JDK. We need to have an IDE. In fact, we can do this using terminal only, but it's a bit complicated. So let's use the IDE, and we need to download the one Java web server. So the web server we will be using in our case is Tomcat. So it is one Java web server. So, and then we need to do the linking for this Java object, for this request, this servlet object. Okay, so then next we will build just build that service method. Okay, build service method. Okay, so next we need to configure that XML that I have added over here only, and after that one we need to deploy and test it. Okay, simple. So we need to do all this. So these things already is I have. So let's open. I'm using NetBeans currently. I always prefer using IntelliJ, but this community edition doesn't support JEE, that is this servlets app and all. Like, I need to get the paid edition, so I'm using NetBeans. So yeah, so let's create the new project. So if you want to create a new project, you need to create it as a web project, web application, dynamic. Okay, so next we'll create next. So let's call this, okay, let's call this date app. Okay, next. See, yeah, see, you can add any server you want. I mean, you can add any server here you want. So I'll be using Tomcat, so you can just press add. Okay, when you press add, you can choose the server or whatever you have downloaded. Okay, so one thing I wanted to tell is, while I was doing it for the first time, this Apache Tomcat was not starting. Okay, so after doing some searching on Stack Overflow, I got to know that we need to, I'm using Ubuntu, so I don't know about Windows. I think it will work directly. So I had to, it was not starting for me. The Tomcat is not started, error was showing. So it seems I had to go to this bin folder of Tomcat and execute this chmod command. So if you are using Ubuntu, you need to execute this one. I'll add this to the YouTube description. So one more thing I forgot to say is, this is the part 1 of the video. Okay, in order to fully understand this servlet concept, I will be making one second part also. So you can watch, so please watch both the parts so you can get a complete understanding of this servlets. So let's finish. Okay, so we have our date app over here. So we have our dependencies, project files, web pages, source pages. Okay, so let's create one. We need to create a servlet, right? And we need to do the linking. That's our only two jobs. Already this one servlet is here, so let's create that servlet. So let's call it date let's call it date servlet. Okay, next. So URL pattern, let's change it to date app slash resource. Okay, let's finish. So now we are in this class called date servlet. Okay, and then this date servlet extends HTTP servlet. So I'll explain what is happening here in the next video. So for now, let's continue with that. Okay, where is, okay, so we'll be writing our method in this do get. Okay, so now some of you might get a question. So over here I said that we will write all the whatever we want, that method we want in service method, right? But now I am saying I have to say, now I'm saying that we have to do that in do get method. So why do get method, why not service method? So I'll again, this one also I'll explain in the second video. So for now, whatever this thing we want to do, let's do it in the do get. So in the second video you will get better clarity as to why we are doing it in do get. So let's do that one. So this is our doGet method. So let's first just for our clarity, in doGet method. Okay, so next we have to create the date is equal to new date. Okay, enter. So after this one, so let's create one HTML. So HTML next. I forgot the tag. Get title. Title ends. This one is date. Time. Next we'll create the body. So the date is plus body and slash HTML. Okay, so whatever we have over here, we need to write it into this response. So with how we are going to do that one is, we have to call one print writer object, not print writer, to write this response. So we need to put this thing inside this response, right? So we need to I forgot that name, print okay, 1 second, I forgot that name. Yeah, print writer, yeah, this one. So the print writer, so using this response, okay, response will create one get writer. Okay, so response.getWriter will get that PW here, print writer here, and using that print writer we get the print writer from the response, and using that we just write whatever this HTML we want, okay, inside the, and as soon as you write it, yeah, that's it. We don't need to do anything else. The rest of that the web server will manage. So that's it, guys. Let me remove all these other methods. There has to be one constructor over here, since like I said an object will get created, right? Where is that constructor? Let me remove this. Okay, there has to be one no argument constructor. I mean, if it is not, if there are no other constructor, it means by default one no argument constructor will be there, but I'll just write that. So public date servlet println inside constructor. So now, yeah, don't need this also. So yeah, so that's it. So now let's try to run this one. Let's see if it runs. Okay, date tab slash res. Okay, something is wrong. So let's see what is wrong. Not this, ours is where the error is coming. Where is the logs? Give me a minute, guys. Man, close this and close this. Web.xml. Close this. run date app. Okay. Wow. I think. Oh, why it's not talking? DAT. Oh, guys, it is small d. Not. Still, it's throwing error. Oh, why it's throwing error? Why, guys? Why it's throwing error? Response. Web.inf date servlet. Okay. In web.inf should have one web.xml, but that XML file is not there. But where is the logs? Why no logs are showing here? Let's search for the logs, guys. It's logs, error, logs. Logs. No logs only. data Yes, guys, it has come. I just did some spelling mistakes. Okay, so it has come. So the date is this. So, and then to this one, let's concatenate one string. So I'll just string quotes codes is equal to quotes I'll give okay, next. Today is good day. Next. Okay, so these are the two codes. There's some random things. So now to this one, I will just I'll just attach one. It has to choose one random thing, right? Dot random star. How much quotes are there? 1, 2, 3 and 4. this whole thing. I will wait, not this, this to this mat.random. I will just and make it int. After making it int, QUOTS codes. Plus and then okay, there you go guys, see, now this one is coming, so next that one is coming, so next that one is coming, so yeah. Well, this is how we can do it guys. So we have created this app, so yeah, thank you for watching. Before we go out, So I'm going to teach you how to do that linking. So as you can see, we have to do that linking properly or else it won't work, right? So we have one servlet class. I mean, this is that web app, okay? So web app, this is that our top one. Okay, next we have something called servlet. Okay, so next we have something called servlet name, servlet something like this name. So this will be the name of the servlet, right? So we have created it as date app, so slash servlet name. So and then the next one is the servlet class. So that servlet class should be the fully qualified class name. So whatever that com dot company dot date app okay. So same thing. So with this one, that servlets, okay. So over here servlet mapping, so this is the important. So in servlet mapping, so over here we have servlet name, okay. So here that date, sorry, this should be date servlet. So date, okay, and then here it will be the URL pattern, not whatever URL pattern we have given, URL pattern. So slash date app something, whatever we gave, slash src, and with that this servlet mapping ends, and slash web app. So that's it, guys. So this is how we have to give. So over here we need to give it, here we are mapping the servlet name to whatever URL we want, right? So in the starting I had explained we will do this configuration. So for this request app my app slash issues, this servlet should get executed. That one we make this connection over here, and then over here we have to give that servlet name along with the fully qualified servlet class name. So you might say that we can only give this URL pattern along with this fully qualified servlet name, but but that's not the case. We have to follow this structure, so only then it will work. So yeah, just follow this structure. So over there in my code, like I was making this spelling mistakes, so only now after that I was able to figure out. So yeah, that's it, guys. So please watch the second part also. Yeah, thank you for watching.